Hello there, you're watching Nightline. I'm Anita Wu. The headlines. Cabinet to remain as is, says Prime Minister. Ampera Exco member to be charged over alleged rape Friday. We begin with our opening story. Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad on Thursday denied a news report of a possible cabinet reshuffle. Speaking to reporters after attending a gathering with civil servants in Putrajaya on Thursday, Tun Dr. Mahathir also confirmed that no one will be axed, only slight changes in terms of the portfolios.
Saya bercakap dengan kabinet, mungkin ada tukar sikit portfolio, tapi belum ada.
Tapi ada tukar portfolio, tapi tak ada cabinet reshuffle?
No cabinet reshuffle.
Just tukar portfolio?
Tukar portfolio. Itu pun saya belum buat.
Sorry?
Itu pun saya belum lakukan.
Belum lakukan. Bila tu nak buat?
Kalau nak buat, saya beritahu.
He said he could not reveal which portfolios he wanted to adjust, but would do so at a later time if there was a necessity. Tun Dr. Mahathir also shot down talk that former International Trade and Industry Minister Datuk Sri Mustafa Mohamad would be made minister again. Taxi operators, road safety experts and even Islamic scholars have rallied against the green light given to motorcycle e-hailing service Gojek to operate in Malaysia. Big Blue Taxi Services founder Shamsu Bahrain Ismail said rather than bringing in a motorcycle-based ride-hailing service, he preferred if the government focused on resolving the issues involving e-hailing and taxi drivers in the country instead of supporting Gojek, a move he deemed a step backwards.
Kita punya public transport infrastructure are the best among all the ASEAN countries. You want to bring down the level of our standard just because you want to win the vote of the youngsters. You want to bring down. You want to sell our youngsters at a cheap cost.
Traffic engineering specialist Dr. Lord Teck Hua also voiced his objection to the move, saying up to 60% of annual road deaths in the country involved motorcyclists and pillion riders. Dr. Law, a professor at University Kebangsaan Malaysia, said having another e-hailing service model to take up a slice of the public transport industry's pie would not sit well with other players who have been squabbling for a place in the past 5 years. Meanwhile, Selangor Mufti Datuk Muhammad Tamiaz Abdul Wahid said the act of two individuals of opposite genders and without family ties riding on the same motorcycle is un-Islamic and could lead to accusations. Commenting on the issue, Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad on Thursday defended the government's move to allow Gojek to operate in Malaysia. Responding to safety fears amongst the public on the service, especially for women, the Prime Minister said it was up to the people to decide whether they wanted to use Gojek or not.
Kalau bahasa tak selamat, jangan naik ya. You have the choice. We are not forcing you to take a motorcycle ride.
Tun Dr. Mahathir said the introduction of Gojek would also benefit small businesses. However, he said specific legislations on governing the e-hailing service have yet to be discussed. Youth and Sports Minister Syed Saddiq Syed Abdul Rahman had said recently that the government wanted to bring Gojek to Malaysia, saying that the motorcycle e-hailing service would create a lot of job opportunities for motorcyclists. Gojek has thus far launched its operations in Vietnam, Thailand and Singapore. DAP Perak Assemblyman Paul Yong Chu Keong, who allegedly raped an Indonesian domestic worker, will be charged at the Ipoh Sessions Court on Friday. In confirming this, Federal CID Director Datuk Huzair Mohamad in a statement said Yong will be charged under Section 376 of the Penal Code for rape. Yong, 49, was arrested by the authorities on July 9th following a police report filed by the 23-year-old maid the day before, accusing him of the act in his residences in Meru, Ipoh. He was later released on police bail. Yong is the Perak State Executive Council member for Tronoh and also serves in the State Local Government, Public Transport, Non-Muslim Affairs and New Villages Committee.
Dia sebenarnya bukan panggil saya ambil cuti.
An IT employee has been charged with murder for the road rage incident on August 10th that killed bank manager Syed Muhammad Daniel Syed Shakir. 41-year-old Yu Wei Liang was brought to the Kajang Magistrates Court on Thursday, where he only nodded after the charge was read out to him before Magistrate Norafida Idris. No plea was recorded. Yu is accused of causing the death of 29-year-old Syed Muhammad Daniel on the North-South Expressway on August 10th. The charge under Section 302 of the Penal Code carries the mandatory death penalty upon conviction. No bail was offered to the accused as the offence is non-bailable, while the accused was sent to the Sungai Buloh prison. The court then fixed September 27th for mention and to hear the complaint by the defence. The police on Thursday recorded statements from Muslim preacher Dr. Zakir Naik at the Bukit Aman Police Headquarters. Dr. Zakir, who was accompanied by his lawyer, Dato' Akbaruddin Abdul Qadir, arrived at Bukit Aman at 3:40 p.m. Federal CID Director Dato' Huzair Mohammed said Dr. Zakir was summoned to have his statement recorded over his complaint against several politicians. He said the case is being investigated under Section 500 of the Penal Code for defamation. The police have recorded statements twice previously, that is last Friday and Monday, from the preacher from India who is a permanent resident in Malaysia. Earlier, Chinese educationist group Dongzong president was also summoned by the Bukit Aman Police Headquarters to have his statements recorded. Tan Tai Kim, who arrived at 9:30 a.m., was being investigated under the Penal Code for intentional insult with intent to provoke a breach of the peace. Tan was accompanied by Secretary General Ng Chai Heng, who was also called in for questioning. Dongzong faced much flack over its opposition to the introduction of cut calligraphy to vernacular primary schools from next year. This was despite the topic having been part of the national curriculum since the past 2 years. The Finance Ministry expects a 20% increase in first-time home buyers' loan approvals after Bank Negara Malaysia expanded eligibility criteria for its Affordable Housing Fund. Lim Guan Eng said this was based on the extended repayment duration to 40 years from 30 years, which will help first-time homeowners reduce their monthly housing loan repayments.
Syarat-syarat ini telah pun dilonggarkan daripada RM2,300 sebulan. Pendapatan sebulan telah dinaikkan kepada RM4,360 sebulan. So, mereka yang mempunyai pendapatan RM4,360 pun layak untuk menikmati pinjaman sedemikian, dan harga rumah telah dinaikkan kepada RM300,000 daripada RM150,000. Dan faedah konsesi adalah sebanyak 3.5% setahun untuk satu tempoh. Kalau sebelum ini 30 tahun, dia telah lanjutkan kepada 40 tahun.
Lim said this in a joint press conference with Housing and Local Government Minister Zuraida Kamaruddin in Putrajaya on Thursday. The enhancement, which takes effect on September 1st, is an additional initiative to help citizens in the bottom 40 income group to own their first home. Two primary schools were forced to close Thursday due to worsening haze in the Kuala Baram area in Miri, Sarawak. This after the air quality in the area, which is battling forest and peat soil fires, worsened to the hazardous level Thursday morning. The Air Pollutant Index, or API, reading at the monitoring station close to the areas on fire rose to 412 as at 3 p.m. The school closure affected a total of 1,906 pupils, including 50 preschoolers from SK Kuala Baram 2 and SJK Chonghua Tudan. Authorities said 2 fire hotspots have been detected so far in Sarawak, 22 in Indonesia's Kalimantan and 13 in Sumatra. Firefighters are waterbombing the raging forest and peat soil fires using helicopters and a bombardier aircraft of the Malaysian Maritime Enforcement Agency. Media Prima Berhad's net loss narrowed by 78% to 8.8 million ringgit in the second quarter, ended June 30th, 2019. This is compared to the media conglomerate's net loss of 40.4 million ringgit recorded in the preceding quarter. For the half year, the company dipped into a net loss of 49.2 million ringgit, reversing the net profit of 10.1 million ringgit just a year ago. This was on the back of a lower revenue of 535.9 million ringgit compared to 623 million ringgit in the same comparative period. Its group chairman, Datuk Syed Hussein Al-Junaid, said the results reflected the challenges affecting media companies worldwide. On a brighter note, Media Prima's online news outlets remain among the top sites in Malaysia, with a combined monthly average users of 21 million. Its television networks also maintained its dominant broadcast position in Malaysia, with a 36.1% total audience share.
Dalam laporan akhir pengauditan 1MDB, beberapa maklumat.
Petroleum Nasional Berhad, or Petronas, was crowned the most attractive employer in Malaysia for 2019. This marks the second time Petronas is clinching the award by global human resources solutions agency Randstad. The award was in recognition of Petronas's outstanding efforts in establishing a strong employer brand amid the increasingly dynamic and competitive marketplace. Petronas said it continued to place importance on diversity and inclusion efforts to foster a conducive workplace environment for their employees. Its recent efforts included the implementation of flexible work arrangements, workplace redesign, enhanced benefits, and the use of digital technologies. Other homegrown brands that were ranked in the top 10 most attractive employers are AirAsia Berhad and Samdabi Berhad. Up next, Najib innocent, Joe Low to blame. Defence tells SRC trial. The details next. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Nightline continues. The defence in Datuk Sri Muhammad Najib Tun Razak's corruption trial on Thursday accused fugitive businessman Low Tek Joe of masterminding the financial scandal involving SRC International, saying the former Prime Minister had no knowledge of such clandestine activities. However, MACC investigating officer Rosli Hussein brushed off all suggestions put forward by the defence team. On Thursday, Datuk Sri Najib's lawyer, Havinderjit Singh, when cross-examining the final witness in the trial, MACC officer Rosli Hussein repeatedly shot questions of a similar nature to Rosli. But the 54-year-old graft buster did not budge and was steadfast in his answers. Havinder then said Rosli was in complete denial because he did not conduct a thorough investigation. To another question, Rosli confirmed that MACC investigations showed that 642 million ringgit had flowed into Datuk Sri Najib's accounts from Prince Faisal Turki and also the Ministry of Finance in Riyadh. Datuk Sri Najib is facing 6 charges of money laundering and criminal breach of trust in the transfer of 42 million ringgit to his account from SRC International. He is also accused of abusing his power as Prime Minister by giving government guarantees on SRC International's 4 billion ringgit loan from the Retirement Fund Incorporated. The trial before High Court Judge Muhammad Nazlan Muhammad Ghazali continues. Meanwhile, the much put-off start to Datuk Sri Najib's highly anticipated corruption trial over the 2.3 billion ringgit funds from 1MDB at the Kuala Lumpur High Court will be decided once and for all on Friday. Judge Colin Lawrence Sakera said he will decide the start of the 1MDB trial and the dates then when the case was raised in court on Thursday for management. Sakera also agreed to a suggestion by ad hoc prosecutor Datuk Sri Gopal Sri Ram to call in formal witnesses to testify without their witness statements on August 27th. Under the 1MDB trial, Datuk Sri Najib is facing a total of 25 charges, namely 4 counts of abusing his position for his own financial benefit, totaling almost 2.3 billion ringgit, and the resulting 21 counts of money laundering. The identities of 3 individuals who were burned to death in a fiery car crash in Bura Pahang more than 2 days ago remain unknown. Police said so far no family members or relatives have come forward to claim the bodies and no reports have been lodged on missing persons. Authorities also said that a post-mortem report and fingerprint samples only had revealed that the victims were 2 male and female adults and a teenage boy. This as the bodies were charred beyond recognition as the Proton Wira they were travelling in was completely destroyed in the 3-vehicle collision. The identification process was made complicated as the Proton Wira was registered to an individual based in Selangor who no longer owned the car. Over in Terengganu, a man claimed trial at the Kuala Terengganu Sessions Court on Thursday to a charge of causing injuries to the Besut police chief last week. 33-year-old Muhammad Nasir was accused of slashing Superintendent Muhammad Zamri Muhammad Rowi with a parang in the incident on August 15th. The incident in Kampung Padang Luas also caused the victim to lose his right thumb and sustain injuries in the back of his head. This followed an argument between the two, who are neighbours, after the victim complained about a coconut tree planted on his land by the accused. The self-employed man faces a maximum imprisonment of 20 years and fine or whipping if found guilty. The court fixed September 11th for remention of the case. In Selangor, the Subang Jaya Municipal Council, MPSJ, has torn down 2 massage parlours in Bandar Puteri Puchong for operating without a licence. They were also suspected of providing sexual services to local and foreign customers. The raids, which were conducted simultaneously, saw police detaining 32 foreign masseurs from Thailand, Vietnam and Indonesia. 2 local men believed to be the caretakers of the centres were also arrested. All those detained, aged between 20 to 40 years old, have been taken to the Serdang Police Headquarters for further action. Still to come on Nightline, Indonesia shuts down internet as protest rages. Stay tuned. We move on to the foreign front now. Indonesia has cut off internet access in eastern Papua to prevent provocative posts online from fueling violence. This after protesters torched buildings, a market and a prison over mistreatment of students and perceived ethnic discrimination. According to officials, Indonesia's communication ministry has blocked access to telecommunication data and the internet since Wednesday night, and the curb will only be lifted once the situation has calmed. Calls and text messages, however, still work. While a separatist movement has simmered for decades in Papua, with frequent complaints of rights abuses levelled against Indonesian security forces, the recent anger appears to be linked to racist slurs against Papuan students who were detained last week. The students were arrested from their dormitory in the city of Surabaya in East Java after being accused of disrespecting the Indonesian flag during a celebration of Indonesia's Independence Day. In another development, North Korea on Thursday said it has no interest in dialogue as long as South Korea and the United States keep up military threats against it. A spokesperson for the North's foreign ministry issued the warning in a statement, which also denounced Seoul for violating inter-Korean agreements to reduce cross-border tensions by introducing high-tech weapons from the US, calling such an act a grave provocation. The statement also blamed the US and South Korea for intensifying hostile acts against Pyongyang, which it said is undermining momentum for talks and forcing Pyongyang to take action to strengthen its own physical deterrence. The statement came a day after 2 additional fighter jets arrived in South Korea, bringing the total number of the stealth fighters in the country's air force to 6, and after US Special Representative for North Korea, Stephen Biegun, told reporters on Wednesday in Seoul that Washington is ready to resume stalled denuclearization talks as soon as he hears from his counterparts in North Korea. A fresh attempt to repatriate hundreds of Rohingya refugees to Myanmar appears to have failed, with officials saying no one has turned up to embark on 5 buses and 10 trucks prepared by Bangladesh. According to officials, some 3,500 Rohingya refugees were cleared for repatriation to Myanmar following a joint exercise led by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees and the Bangladesh government. But on Thursday, several Rohingya refugees whose names were listed said they did not want to return unless their safety was ensured and they were granted citizenship. They also feared being sent to camps for internally displaced people if they went back to Myanmar. Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, meanwhile, has said her government would not force the refugees to return and repatriation will only happen if they are willing. The latest repatriation attempt, a previous push failed in November, follows a visit last month to the camps by high-ranking officials from Myanmar led by Permanent Foreign Secretary Min Tu. Coming up next, action from the Malaysian track cyclist at the Southeast Asia Track GP. Stay with us. We're back with sports news now. Cycling. Azizul Hasni Awang rediscovered his best form to win the men's sprint gold medal in the Southeast Asia Track GP held at the National Velodrome in Nilai Negeri Sembilan on Thursday. The Terengganu-born cyclist out-sprinted Indonesian Puguh Admadi in two semi-final heats to march to the final. And in the finals, Azizul Hasni took down Park Jone of South Korea, also 2-0, to bag the gold medal. However, in the women's category, top Malaysian women cyclist could only manage second place after losing to Indonesian Chris Monita Dwi Putri in the final. On Friday, all eyes will again be on Azizul Hasni and Fatihah to deliver the gold in the Kirin event. Looks like that wraps up Nightline this time around, but before we leave, let's have a look at the latest episode of the Follow Me series, which sees BMX champion Eric Reserve build a skate park inside the ancient Kazan Kremlin in Russia and ride along the Spasskaya Tower, followed by an FPV drone. With that, I'm Anita Vu. Thank you for watching and be well.